All right. So last week we did a video on bandits. No, fuck. So last week we did a video.
Goblins.
So last week we did a video on goblins. This week we're doing a video on bandits.
Yep.
We're making a combat encounter just
This is
using
all
bandits.
batch recorded.
Shut up. We're doing.
I'm wearing the same shirt, people.
No. It's just in your rotation of like what you wear. On this day, you wear that shirt.
Oh yeah, I wear this shirt on this day.
Yeah, specifically on this day you wear. So, we're doing a video on bandits, and we're each making.
Can people actually read my shirt?
Probably. I don't know. Yes, to an extent they can read your shirt.
You can just pinch and pull it open.
Yeah, there you
zoom
go.
Right
I'll zoom in that bit. All right, so we're doing a video on bandits and making a combat encounter and making it interesting with bandits. I started first last time with my encounter for my goblin.
And I discovered you go way over. Upgrade everything drastically.
Yes.
Which is actually pretty cool because that gives you that extra terror movement up. Where I last time just basically just like mild upgrades and scenario setups.
Don't worry, I didn't go as deep on this one for the bandits as I did for the goblins. There's a lot less information there, but there is still a generally well thought out battle in mind that I had, or scenario if you will. But I started first last time, you started first this time for the bandits.
That's fun in itself because I don't know what you did. So, what's the chance I might?
It's possible, yeah, because I don't have the note open for myself to go off of. I like notes here. I use notes.
I kind of invent stuff on the fly. Bandits are typically depicted as humans who have decided to go out to the wilderness or the alleyways of various cities to rob and pilfer various people, oftentimes adventurers who talk too much. I am sorry, it's Mr. Penny has a big mouth.
Yep.
In a campaign, my gnome artificer mentioned how the party went into the store and mentioned, "Hey, we have a bunch of money. I'm really interested in buying stuff, and apparently we're here on official business for a job, and we got attacked by bandits." It's because Nathan then thought it was really fun that my character was basically flashing cash in a town.
Yeah.
But anyways, you can take that as a basic detail to have have a bandit in the background. If your characters get a little too loose with their money, bandits come out of the woodworks to attack them.
Yeah.
For that. A simple thing for bandits is the classic one is in the woods on a trail where the party's riding along in a carriage or walking or something like that. And there's a log in the road.
Okay. There's a thing in the road, a log or whatever.
The car comes up to it, stops, and one bandit steps out, or two, and then two others pop up on a high edge and aim down at the party. That is a fairly cliche way of doing it.
Yes.
And it comes in many forms. You can actually have the bridge be taken out. They're on a trail, bridge is taken out, bandits come out, like, ta-da. There's sort of that tip away.
They're this, like, ambush predator, if you will, of the world. Not of a high combat rating, but just this lowly one for the commoners and for the low-level groups.
Yep. The generic bandits in the DMGs.
Where would you normally find bandits?
You would typically find bandits either in towns, valleys, plains, forests, and even in mountains.
Would you find the bandits at the sea?
The bandits of the sea. Well, that would be pirates, and we'd be another video in itself for just technicality's sake.
So we can't do the bandits of the sea.
We could do bandits of the sea. I would naturally be inclined to think that would be pirates.
I suppose. I think pirates are their own like hour-long video, though.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I said earlier. But anyways, that is the common setup. You have the party traveling from point A to point B. There is a thing that obstructs their path. and then people pop out when they get too close to that thing, and you have a situation there. You can always have a situation where the party continues, tries to stop short or rush around it.
Yeah.
There is a scenario like this in Lost Mines of Phandelver with goblins. Interestingly enough, we already did the goblin video, where the party travels up to a carriage with a horse, and they may get attacked if they get too close to the carriage. What my party did is they basically put on the gas and shot around the carriage and took off faster. Oftentimes, it's very important as a dungeon master to not railroad or force your characters to get stuck there. Like, invent some reason to have their carriage break down or get blocked even when they dodge around it. Sometimes just let them go.
Yeah.
Because the win is a win for the players, and sometimes it's just better to let them have that win. And then other times you have the town folks tell them, hey, we've been waiting for the shipment. So
the town sends you to deal with
our
bandits.
best friend, and that has been helping us for decades, has disappeared. He described the carriage he typically uses in the horse. And then the players decide, oh, dear goodness, we have to go back and check that out.
Yup.
But anyways, that's the standard scenario for bandits you typically see. You can modify this by, if you're going into higher levels, maybe give a bandit...
a bandit captain.
A bandit captain, or you stick a evil druid in with the bandits that have a low-level... some low-level spells to deal with the... party, or you might stick
like Starry Wisp.
Like Starry Wisp. Even in moderate levels, maybe like plant growth or something else was for such a situation. But
you really could mess with the players significantly, hypothetically, in this situation, because druids do they have elementalism?
Yeah.
Or druidcraft. You could use those to make effects in the road that the players are seeing, to then really throw them off the scent of the bandits, if you will.
Yeah, you can also use a warlock or a wizard or a sorcerer, and use a minor image to generate a fake image in the road or something like that works along with the bandits, and that adds on to the bandits' difficulty for the party. Typically, bandits don't have magic. They have just either bows or swords or daggers to harass the party. So if the players happen to get all the bandits on one side, you have spellcasters. You can like fling big spells or AoEs on them and take them out fairly quickly.
Yeah.
So oftentimes just having a spellcaster floating in the wing will improve the scenario. Simple upgrade to bandits is, say, like in the case of the bandits, you might give them not just regular arrows, but you might you could
Flame Tongue Greatsword.
Flame Tongue Greatsword. You can that is a item that the players will get their hands on, and the golden rule is, if you're playing with really early on, is sometimes you don't want to put really nice magic items in with the
that breaks when the bandit dies.
That's also worse. That's gonna peeve some players off. But anyways, what you can use is expendable items, say like
Flame Tongue Greatswords. Expendable items.
You can use crossbow bolts, and you can just homebrew on a touch of like a little ampule of fire,
or you can poison them,
or poison, or something like that.
You don't need to homebrew that. You can just do it. It kind of is, but
or flash powder, where the arrow hits them and
you're just gonna steal all my talking points for my bandit encounter, aren't you?
You can use all kinds of fun little small upgrades for the scenario, but we haven't covered the standard scenario of bandits in the road in the wilderness yet.
What's your scenario for them?
Another simple modification for that is that sometimes you could actually have a situation where the players are traveling along the path. They might not have an obstacle directly in front of them.
You're gonna word for word nail my encounter, aren't you? No. Let's see what we get.
But anyways, you can have bandits all of a sudden roll obstacles across the backside of the players, which will cause the players to want to rush forward.
Yes.
And if they start rushing forward...
Pitfall.
That takes time. You can actually do that if you can like say like another classic one is
mold earth and then
yeah,
get full,
you can have your spellcaster helping by doing mold earth and pull out a spot on the ground, and then the carriage falls into it and stuff like that. But you can also just have bandits scare the players on the backside by dropping a trap that misses them, causing the players to escape away. This does not always happen. Some player groups are super aggro like Godzilla. They are not the kind that run away when they are threatened. They turn and immediately attack into it, and they keep attacking forward into the situation.
Yep.
So even then, if you drop it behind them, then the intention is to cause the players to freak out and take off.
They're going to swing in this direction now.
They might just turn around and come back and just attack. But when you launch them off into the direction, you can also have down the path where you have a sign where it's a Y, and you can have the bandits switch the sign around so it points down a different path, and have that path go out into a swamp. So it dead ends them out into a swamp. And then, slightly different situation.
And then have that bandit ambush over in that much more secluded area rather than the main road.
And they can either not have dropped something on the backside and flip the sign, causing you guys to go down the wrong path, and then flip the sign back the other way. That way, when people are going on that road, well, they don't actually come across your situation.
I like it. So all right. What is your bandit encounter?
My basic my little modified bandit encounter.
Yes.
Is that there's numerous little ways to do about this, but you, as I described before, you can actually cause the party to chase off the wrong path. And by the way, as a dungeon master, you can decide that there's multiple of these switch off paths. So if the players pick the right path because they think the sign has been switched on them, you can do it later down on the point. This is called quantum ogring. This is a dangerous. This is a bit of linearity in the adventure. Don't argue with the players if they want to like change a different path. You just kind of move the obstacle to a new spot and then continue on.
The dungeon was always there.
Yeah, the dungeon was always there. You went down the path. You just ran into that ogre. Don't mind the fact that...
My prep never goes to waste.
Yeah, my prep never goes to waste. It's important to note that if you do quantum ogring, where you just constantly reshuffle... there's two paths, and you simply move the thing to the place that the players chose. If you do that too often, someone might realize that, and then they might get irritated.
Because they feel like their choices don't matter.
Yeah, don't matter. You only really do that every so often if it's like a super important event in the story in the world, and you pick it really sparingly.
Agreed.
So in the case of the swamp scenario,
So is yours the swamp scenario?
Yeah. Okay. It goes they go out onto, say, like a bridge.
Are we talking they've got the sign flip?
You go onto the sign, you use the sign flip option.
Okay.
You misdirect the party out into the wrong path. They go out through a swamp.
Yeah.
On a bridge section, and the bandits use a set of lines to pull out a section of the some boards out that causes it to collapse over, which then blocks you out into the swamp.
Okay.
And then this also works in Dungeons & Dragons 2014 as well. You can have either a Aarakocra spellcaster or some other character that's capable of moving around quickly in the water or the swamp itself to actually cast Witch Bolt on various players.
Yeah.
As they try to knock out the party. So you have these few targets out there that are casting Witch Bolt on you, you're stuck on this little island, and if you jump off into the water or this muck, you're in difficult terrain, so you can't move very effectively. But they move around very effectively. They're either Lokatha or they're Grung or something like that,
Turtles
or
Water Titans,
or any species that can fly, or like really nasty fairies or something like that, or any other group that might have Witch Bolt. Some D&D YouTubers proclaim that Witch Bolt is even the 2014 is a garbage spell.
I really enjoy using bad spells against my players.
Oh yeah, and if you are really clever, what I did here is I created a scenario where the party is on a little island and they are limited in their movement options, and they get off that platform, they are now in a situation where they have difficult terrain, so you're witch bolting them. And if they're the kind of people who spend a lot of time on YouTube or on the internet, they know how crappy they believe Witch Bolt is a crappy spell. So it's probably going to irritate them and agitate them that you're using what's considered a garbage spell to chip off health.
Yup.
So,
I completely agree.
It works. You can also do something similar at higher levels with different people by using either plant growth or ensnare or or spikes or like that. Spike growth where you actually cause damage to your players and cause them to be in a area of hazardous terrain or greater hazardous terrain.
Yeah.
Where it costs them way more movement to get around, and you just happen to have an enemy that can easily either like an Aarakocra or an Owlin or a fairy or some other enemy on the outside skirt of that manages to hit you as you're trying to move around or
yeah, and they're constantly flying outside of the range of most people.
Or even just simply being just in range enough to actually use Witch Bolt on you.
Or even going behind trees as well.
If you stand behind any object that blocks your line sight on your opponent, the spell cuts out.
Oh man, that sounds like a bad spell.
Yeah,
gosh, why would anyone ever use that?
It's a bit complicated, but yes. If the enemy if you use any action other than continuing Witch Bolt,
yeah, then it goes away.
And it cuts out. If you physically move to have an object be between you and your opponent, the spell cuts out. And if the target ever moves outside of range of the spell, it cuts out. So there's that little detail right there. But
is that the conclusion to your bandit encounter?
Yeah, you can have like either an Aarakocra or one other character using Witch Bolt to tase a few of them tase the party members, and then the other bandits basically either on a boat or on another platform, and basically yell over and tell them to surrender, or they're gonna just get shocked to death.
I like it.
It's a low-level spell. It's largely considered to be a very weak spell. The 2024 version is much better. It actually extends the range and gives you a little bit more kick to it.
That's good.
But anyways, it's a fun
little encounter.
Yeah. And then they're out on the swamp. They're kind
of trapped at this point.
They're trapped. If they manage to kill the bandits or defeat them,
they still have to deal with it. They're trapped.
Yeah, they have to either re-rectify the part of the bridge that got pulled out so they can go back, in which case they go all the way back and discover that the sign was flipped around the other way.
Yup. I like it.
And they realize that they went down the wrong path.
But
also, you can also have the B variant option where there's the bridge section.
Yes.
They're trapped on the little island section because they got pulled away the two lower sections into the swamp.
Yeah.
They decide to either lift this one up and continue on because they might think that's actual path, and that might actually go to an alternative village.
Yeah.
Or a meeting place of all the bandits. Okay. That is slightly higher in difficulty than the first one.
Yeah.
So the party might run into a second scenario with a different group of bandits, not different group, but a different encounter with more bandits of the same organization. And then they could spiral off into an adventure against that side.
I'm dealing with this bandit colony, if you will.
This bandit, the secret society of criminals, this thieves guild of bandits.
Okay.
In the woods kind of situation. And you can have a bit of fun with that. You can either have a few other spellcasters, artificers, and other kinds of class of characters working in the bandits group. discover like hidden tree cities, or
You could start imbuing the bandits with magic as well, like fire magic.
yeah,
Just
you
like, I'm referencing
the goblin
yes,
situation. Yeah,
yes, the goblin
you
situation.
can do that stuff too. You can either be something that's like a sorceress kind of thing, or there's this fountain where some group of bandits are drinking from it, and it's causing them to gain magical powers. Like
Yep.
they gain shape water and a few other water spells.
Yeah.
So, or fire spells or something else like that. The secret organization of criminals. That's headed by a young green dragon. And just like that, it turns into a campaign in itself, guys.
Something tells me the bandits aren't working for the Green Dragon, but maybe they could, and that's its own mission to figure out why.
Yep. And they're working with the goblins in the area.
And the goblins with their king.
Yeah, the goblins with their king and a rat bag.
With his rat bag.
So, yeah.
All right. I'll get into mine.
And go for yours.
So I'm going to get into my bandit encounter. I kind of enjoy that with all of this, you kind of get to see how my notes function in terms of building out an encounter. The flow of it, mind you, you're seeing like a full encounter build out. You're not seeing like the story that leads up to the encounter, which is normally more bullet pointed and setting DCs and writing them all up. But so I'm gonna get into my bandit encounter, which is less than my goblin encounter. Don't worry. So I'm calling it the Highwayman's Gambit, right? So it's a bit of a deception, a bait and switch, ambush, just like you want from bandits, right? The idea is that you've got the bandits have a helpless merchant, which is also a bandit. They're disguised. They're kind of pleading for aid. You've got your hidden archers that are all around, kind of eyeing it up, right, waiting for the people to come. The let's say that there's a cart there. It has a broken wheel on it. The people come to assist. The wagon is rigged with explosives. The wagon is rigged with explosives.
How many D8s of bludgeoning damage is this?
I don't know yet. So my idea is I'm going to use bandit trappers. These ones have caltrops and nets, or caltrop nets, if you will. Do you like caltrop nets?
Yeah.
Nets that have caltrops sewn into it, so that when you throw them, it's doing spike damage as well as
piercing.
Piercing damage as
Everyone
well as
does that once in a while. We might use a wrong term because
as well as preventing them from getting out if they should fail their DC check, right? Then I don't have bandit pyromancers, the spellcasters that get burning hands and maybe lob some smoke grenades as well, heavily obscuring area. You were already talking about smoke grenades.
Yeah.
Then I was thinking about doing like a bandit boss, if you will, an illusionist that is maybe using like disguise self or minor illusion, things like that, charm person. Maybe that's the merchant bandit that's trying to request things of them. Is this spellcaster kind of disguising themselves, right? And then from there, the party, if they fail to figure out what's happening, they could have to then deal with this person stabbing them in the back or whatnot, thinking that it's an ally or whatever they're saving from this bandit attack. Mind you, if you're getting stopped in the road in this situation and bandits are attacking, you're going to assume this person's in on it. Just in general, in terms of being a DM, you're going to assume this merchant's probably in on it. Otherwise, why aren't the bandits attacking them? Right? But the general idea.
I don't know. That's sort of a in the moment kind of thing with some players.
So the idea is that after 2 rounds, the wagon would explode, maybe do like 46s of damage, and it kind of makes the players choose on whether or not they're dealing with the bandits, rescuing this person, and whatnot. I went in and I built out the scaling difficulty here as well. For example, you could reduce the damage. Instead of doing like 46s, you could do like 2d8s. So it could like slightly reduce. as well as you could make it so that maybe the bandit pyromancers are using torches instead of spells, right? So they're not using burning hands. They're just going and throwing the smoke grenades and going and attacking with burning torches that could do fire and bludgeoning, right?
Yeah.
Additionally, you could remove some spells from the illusionist, if you will, the merchant, as well as you can maybe reduce its health, or you can make it so that at a certain health it starts to flee because it's a humanoid, right? And a lot of humanoids, especially bandits, would do that. Additionally, you could change like the DC for the net caltrop, the caltrop net. And then looking at some harder adjustments that I had in mind, you could change the explosion time for that cart. It doesn't need to explode in 2 turns. I mean, the party doesn't know it's going to explode, or maybe they do, depending on things that they do based on checks. Maybe there's like a investigation, insight, perception, things you could do for them to figure that out. And it could maybe explode after 1 turn, so they have just like a moment's reaction. Or you could add in even bigger bandits, if you will, like gladiators holding great swords that try and grapple the party, right? Or even
Bugbear bandits.
throw in better
Bandits.
yes, throw in better spells for the illusionist. Give them like hypnotic pattern, right? Or change up the pyromancer so it's actually throwing alchemist's fire instead, right? I like to build in a little bit more ideas as well because I like to have things that I can draw from as I'm playing out the encounter. So I'll think about additional things that I could do. For example, you can make it so it's raining in the area the entire time. It doesn't necessarily add a lot to it, but it could maybe give the disadvantage to range attacks, right? It could maybe affect the smoke, or you could say that the smoke isn't affected by it. An additional bit, you could do a chase. If the bandits start to run away, there could be a chase scene as they start to get away on horses. Or maybe they even have like additional hostages that you have to try and get from them. I also had the idea that the wagon is a mimic, which could be funny, but I don't know how it would work in terms of the bandits.
It's a pet mimic.
Exactly.
And common mimics can also learn how to talk. Remember Mike the Mimic?
I do. Additionally, I had the idea that maybe the players could then, let's say they notice that the cart is going to explode. Maybe it's this disarming scene where they quickly try and, let's say, chop a fuse or something to stop the explosion before it goes off. Or maybe the bandits, the additional person they have tied up as a hostage is actually the real merchant that they hit right here. This is their cart that they rigged with explosives. So now they gotta go and rescue the original merchant. And then of course there's a lot of loot to be gained off of the bandits as well. Especially spellcasters. This could be spellcasting components as well for your lower level spellcasters. This would be a means of actually giving them their components to cast their spells, maybe on their level up or whatnot, right? So I think it's good to talk to your players about what spells they plan on taking, so that from there you can kind of feed them the items they need to cast their spells.
Also, if you have a spellcaster helping them, this also goes into my version too.
Yep, because you did
You
talk
can
about that.
also have that wizard also has spells themselves, and if there happens to be a wizard in your party, they can get that spell book.
Spell book, yep.
And you could pick and choose various spells. Sometimes you get new wizards that pick a lot of utility spells, and they don't have very good offensive spells.
But the bandit over here, mind you, I made an illusionist one.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be. It could have combat spells in there as well.
Yep. Or you can specifically pick out spells that rebalance your the other person, the wizard in your in the party that's playing in spellbook. So
you could additionally throw in maybe Greg the archer bandit on the side has a nicer looking bow than the rest of them, and it's a +1 short bow or whatever. And now you're just using this as a means to, let's say that your rogue or your ranger or whoever it may be,
silver dagger.
yeah, maybe they're not necessarily doing a whole ton and they've been kind of struggling on the damage because they don't have a magic weapon. This could be your way of balancing it out.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have the exact same thing with using the spellcaster. Or if you go and then also add in those gladiators, now you've created that combat triangle trifecta, if you will, of the melee ranged magic, and you can then go and build out this gladiator as things to then kit up your melee. Maybe maybe you've got someone who's wearing medium armor and they haven't necessarily found anything better than leather or studded leather after a long journey, and this person just happens to have a breastplate, which is wildly expensive for a bandit. Maybe we just do studded leather, right? But this could be a way of like feeding in those different pieces that can be generally harder to obtain at that lower level that you're not already starting with.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, studded leather makes way more sense than a breastplate,
Yep.
but that'd be like a bandit just being geared up in full plate, you know?
That'd be ridiculous. But it might also be an option depending on where you want to go with your campaign.
Absolutely.
You can go with my brother's campaign where you basically be fast tracked to be in high gear or within a few sessions.
Absolutely true.
You might actually just want to give your party some of the higher end stuff off the bat, so you can toss bigger things at them quicker.
Personally, I enjoy that some of the time myself. I tend to do that in one shots, but in a campaign, it's not terrible.
Yeah.
My next campaign is going to level up pretty quickly as well, honestly. I'm thinking on the range of a level or two per session, all the way up to like 7 or 8.
Yep. We also didn't option in bear traps. Bear traps.
I suppose bear traps could work. I went with caltrop nets.
Caltrop nets would be good. You can use bear traps across the road to slow down the party.
I really like the idea. We could seal what we were talking about before about using mold earth, and my illusionist could then also mold earth and create that.
Or the illusionist can make an illusion that looks like it's a hole in the ground.
Yeah, that's true as well.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different options. The moment you start adding in a low-level spellcaster, even if they don't have a ton of powerful offensive spells, and you can have like a weird situation where you have a wizard, a low-level wizard that's a part of the bandit group, but he doesn't have any good offense spells. He just has a bunch of utility spells that they happen to use to manipulate the environment.
Which then makes your players approach it in a very suboptimal way because they weren't expecting what it is.
Yeah.
So that's my bandit encounter. How do you feel on that idea? I like that you kind of covered a lot of the core aspects when going how bandits generally function.
Yep. Well, I tried to make it so that it's just simple upgrades here and there and understanding where your base foundation is starting from. Because once you know where the common thing is, you can then just make small modifications here and there or to surprise the party. Also, the sign thing is not a new idea. It's been used in the past. If you watch a lot of old movies, the evil, dastardly person moves the sign, flips the sign around the other way.
How do you like my exploding cart?
Exploding cart. This exploding cart is really nice. I actually do like that a lot.
You could even, if like the players try and like make off with the cart quickly or something, you could have it have a really delayed blast on it, like 20 turns. Mm-hmm. And if they don't notice...
Yeah.
Alright, that's what I've got on bandits. Have you got more to add?
Well, it's a city option, which basically thieves. Is you can have the classic one is bandits in the alley.
Bandits in the alley. Or even a very deceptive merchant.
Or really deceptive merchant. The classic one in the bandits in the alley is basically the party decides to take a shortcut and they run through an alley and they run past, say, a doorway or something like that, and a bandit steps out, or another one steps out at the other end, and they are between two bandits.
Yeah.
Maybe those bandits have a few more friends that fill out with them, and there might be one or two people on top of the roof that aim down at the party.
And they throw caltrop nets.
They can throw caltrop nets. They can throw regular nets. They can throw actual regular caltrops down. They also have
drop rocks.
Drop rocks. They can also drop.
That would do a lot of damage, honestly.
Yeah, they could also drop ball bearings too. You have an option for ball bearings and rules for that.
Yep.
And can be tossed down on the ground, and they can yell at the party to, "Hey, toss your money pouches towards us, and we'll leave."
Yeah.
And they can just take off like that, and that's just a minor inconvenience sort of situation that.
Yeah, they got robbed for their money or whatever.
You can harass. You can not harass, but you can scare the party early on like that.
Yeah.
With a small army of bandits, your party might have the urge to want to have revenge on those bandits, and go down that path and try to track down the thieves guild in the town to overthrow them, and then you have a town adventure.
You don't see a lot of town adventures.
No, you don't. A lot of D&D adventures usually default to traveling through the wilderness to either a dungeon or some faraway place in which you are to battle evil.
That's fair. Reasonable.
But there are some historical D&D adventures that do pretty much stick in towns.
All right. I think we close on, what's your opinion of bandits as a creature?
Bandits, weirdly enough, is one of those really basic ones for a dungeon master to use. However, it oftentimes only really ever gets used maybe like once or twice by a dungeon master and never again.
Oh, I've used bandits so many times.
Yeah.
I've used a lot of bandits.
It's usually like a single encounter.
You know what I really like using them for?
What?
When your party is already much higher level. Like, we're talking like level 8, and then you throw like two bandits at them that are like trying to rob them, but the bandits don't know the power level of the party, and then it becomes this like moral dilemma of like, is it okay for your parties to kill them? Like, yeah, obviously they're bandits that are trying to mug the people, and they're not good, but also when you reach like a certain level of superiority in combat prowess over the other, maybe there should be like a teaching a lesson moment instead of just an outright lethal moment.
I think those usually just end up as lethal moments.
Yeah, and then it creates moral dilemmas between the players, and I think that's really funny.
Yeah.
Because some of them do see that side of it. But then if everyone's okay with it, just like, yeah, we got a short sword. And a dagger, and a short bow. And that's about it.
Yeah. Bandits are just they're either exist as more largely a nuisance opponent in the environment, or they are people who are like a entry level villain to some other greater villain.
Yeah.
Oftentimes traveling outside of the town itself. Probably be interesting to actually just have an entire campaign focus around a large city with a lot of criminals in it.
That could be interesting. I think Matt tried to do that with his Ravnica campaign.
Yeah.
We did not do right by that campaign.
Mm.
That's okay.
Understood.
I think that campaign, I don't know if you were in that one.
No, I was not.
That was the one that had Sherlock gnomes.
Yeah, that actually was just before me coming to your group.
That was it all concluded with us basically going over to, I don't know what the legion of them is, but it was basically these like undead something or other hive mind creatures, and we were kind of on board with everything they stood for, and we'd already experienced a lot of really not great things from everywhere else, so we just kind of joined up with them. And then he called that the end of the campaign because now we're dead as part of the hive mind. And like, okay.
Okay.
It was one of those sad parts where like the DM kind of accidentally portrays the bad as like really really justified and good, and then you only hit people with bad repercussions or bad things from the good, regardless of like how good the players do. They're only receiving negative, so then they just veer towards that bad side.
Yeah, it's a campaign of grays.
Exactly, that occurred.
Which actually, I've noticed that actually is probably a pattern that's cropped up more and more as postmodernism has crept into tabletop role playing games over the years.
I do a
That
lot
you,
of campaigns of gray
yeah,
myself. This last one was definitely not though.
yeah. The more gray you have a campaign become, the more likely the players might just simply choose to go down the cool dark path, or they might choose to zug when you have accounted for a zig and a zag
Exactly.
situation.
Yep.
So it becomes incredibly hard to run campaigns, even for experienced game masters, when you make it so gray that even the most evil faction in the world is actually looking good, like good guys.
Counterpoint: if you run it super open,
Yeah.
to whatever the players want to do, mind you, that kind of goes against the idea of having like a core plan for the campaign.
Yeah. You turn it into a true sandbox, and then you have to be really careful about
Yeah, you have
having to do all the paths.
You have to be ready to do anything.
Yeah.
Which I've run those games. They can be a lot of fun, but I mean, a lot of the times lately, I've been feeling a big narrative story.
Yeah. This is sandboxes. From what I've known of conversations and experience, is oftentimes one of those things that usually requires a lot of effort upon the dungeon master's part to run.
Yes,
And,
if you try and prep it all,
yeah.
but if you try and improv it all,
Yeah.
you can make it work well.
And then there's also the whole fact that you can't really have a ideal ending to them.
No, not really. Yeah, because it's not a satisfying conclusion.
Yeah, you literally have to kill your baby or your precious cow, your sacred cow.
Yeah, because the party has no big goal, no huge aspiration. Yeah. Unless they end up choosing one that, like, they're going to meet this goal however means works. So now you've got a sandbox of whatever means works, but you still have the end goal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yet again, as I said before, the problem in the super gray sandbox zone is that you have to prep for all the you have to be
ready to improv
prep a lot, and you also have a situation where you kind of have to not have a dream ending to your campaign.
Yep.
You just have to have just a open flow to wherever the players just naturally resolve all of the story.
For me, I prefer, mind you, I like the sandbox style. I think for me it's worse than the big narrative.
Yeah, that actually seems to be the pattern that crops up with a lot of people.
Mind you, I like the sandbox, but
yeah, the problem with the sandbox is it's a lot of people get into tabletop role-playing games because they want to build a story or a big adventure, and their natural point of reference is movies or books or video games, where there's a climactic highs and there's the end point with a message or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the problem with the sandbox is that you actually run into what could be, instead of being episodic story writing, or not episodic.
I was gonna say episodic sounds pretty on point.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's not a series of events.
Yeah,
it is basically a bunch of little self-contained stories in itself.
Yes,
and that can be perfectly fun, but some people really can't take to that.
I agree.
They want to have that climactic final battle or that heart-wrenching moment in the story, and they want to make the story make sense,
Yeah.
And when you go with a sandbox, you literally end up with a situation where you might just have all kinds of angles going into various different directions, and none of it makes sense. And my brother John has a talent for that craziness, is of making a true sandbox.
He does. He does tend to do that, which some players can be generally not for.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it can be fun in its own way, and you got to approach it with the right mindset to go into it. It really is the mindset of how you get into it and whether or not you're going to have a good time with it, I think.
Now you have to accept that the story just will end, and at some point, either your character dying or you just deal with the whatever issue is, and you park out in the corner of the world and become farmers.
Exactly, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah. So, we got anything else?
I think that's all I got.
Alrighty.
We call it there. Farewell.
Yep. That's actually earlier than last time.
Yeah. All right, we'll call it there.